Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Coop Radio Presents Talking About NASCAR. I still haven't came up with a name for this thing yet. It's just still Coop Radio, just a different offshoot of what I've been doing on the other days that aren't scheduled. But this one is scheduled every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Central Time, 7 Eastern. If you ever want to catch them right when they drop on YouTube and on Spotify, those are the two spots you can catch them right now for all Coop Radio needs. Some pretty interesting stuff from last week. Some pretty interesting stuff from that happened this past weekend. Some history that was made that we'll touch on later on in the episode. But very excited to dive into all of the crazy coming outs of more suing. More NASCOURT, I think, is the thing that's going around right now that everyone's saying. Not surprised. We got some new updates on the Gabehart JGR lawsuit that I want to dive into right away. A couple other small things, and then we'll obviously touch on everything that happened this past weekend at COTA. But first things first, we got to talk about Gabehart and the JGR lawsuit. Last week, if you tuned into last week's episode, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Like and subscribe, hit the notifications bell for all of the updates that you'd get from this channel here. Hopefully you'll stick around and keep on listening, as I appreciate you. But if you listened to last week's episode, you would have known I didn't have a whole lot of details as far as the Gabehart JGR lawsuit. I had assumptions, but no concrete facts. I got a little bit more concrete facts this week. With a bunch more news coming out and a bunch more updates. I presumed last week that it was about setups, which it was. Confidential information was all they kind of really said last week, but this week we got a bit more information as far as the nitty-gritty of it. It basically comes down to that JGR is accusing Gabehart of taking setups with him to Spire. The millions of dollars that they are claiming of damages is the time and resources spent in developing those setups, doing the research for that, and all of the money that is put into that. But a lot of stuff has been said on both sides since the last week's episode. We're going to dive into a couple of things here. I got a bunch of tweets, I got a bunch of articles, I got a bunch of stuff. So let's get through some of this as quickly as we can. So as far as the JGR side was kind of basically making the actual, lawsuit public and making it known like, hey, we're suing Chris. But as far as the specifics of some of these things, let's dive into some of these tweets by some NASCAR reporters. First, let's dive into Kelly Crandall's long tweet thread. Kelly Crandall, friend of the show. I'm gonna go ahead and just read through everything. So if any one of you guys have been living under a rock and don't have any of the specifics as far as quotes and such, I'm gonna read through all of this stuff. So this is a tweet thread from Kelly Crandall from back on February 25th of last week. She says in a long tweet thread, a declaration by Gabehart has been filed in the lawsuit proceedings. Gabehart acknowledges, quote, during the 2025 season, I became dissatisfied with certain responsibilities in my position as competition director at JGR and other aspects of how JGR's race teams were being run. Specifically, on or around November 6th, 2025, I provided written notice to JGR pursuant to Section 6 of the agreement. The written notice identified specific job duties and responsibilities assigned to me that were materially inconsistent with my responsible expectations when I accepted the position of Director of Cup Series competition and with the job description provided by JGR and Coach Gibbs prior to the start date. I notified JGR that the job was not at all as advertised. I was promised a COO type role overseeing all it's been a long day, and it's like midnight when I'm recording this. So if I can't read, understand it's because of that. Let's go back to that. Let's restart on that. I notified JGR that the job was not at all as advertised. I was promised a COO type role overseeing all competitive operations with autonomy to lead. Instead, I found myself consistently intertwined with Coach Gibbs, senior JGR executives, and family members when making even routine competition decisions, a dysfunctional organizational structure that I could not continue in. Let's stop here, because we're about to get into the nitty-gritty and the interesting part of this tweet thread. That does not surprise me. Let's remember something here. A lot of the people who are currently running NASCAR Cup teams in general, Hendrick is still ran by Mr. Hendrick, a grandpa, a very old gentleman. Penske, the same thing. A very old man runs that. RCR is the same thing. It's ran by a very old man. Gibbs is still ran by a very old man. These major teams who have been grandfathered in, Roush is still technically, even though it's Roush, Fenway, Keselowski, it's still also ran by Roush, Jack Roush, who's a very old man. These teams that have been grandfathered into the sport for so long and are considered legendary teams that, again, the top three teams in NASCAR right now are Penske, Hendrick, and Gibbs. Those three teams are still ran by three guys who are very old. And when you're an old man, you're not exactly apt to change. So you're going to still run it however you ran it previously, because in your mind, we've done it this way forever, so there's no issues with how we do things. So why change it? It's the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so to hear that type of a quote of like, I had to run everything through family members, and I had to run it through Joe himself, and I had to run it through all these other different JGR executives, and before I could do anything, and I really didn't have the control that I was promised. That doesn't surprise me at all, considering the fact that they still have a certain way that they run things. It's still a family-run business in a lot of ways. It's the name Gibbs is on the wall for a reason. It's not just a figurehead. That man runs the show. He may not know, as I think Denny was the one who, or maybe it was Joe himself who had this quote on like Dale Jr.'s podcast or something, where he basically said, hey, look, I know and understand that my expertise is not in how the car is made. I know and understand that I need to hire other people that are much more knowledgeable in this exact field than I am in order to make this run correctly. I need to have the right people in place in order for this thing to work. Joe was a great coach for football, and he can take his coaching ability and what he's learned being a coach in football as far as knowing personalities and knowing who to put where, and being able to be a leader of a group of people, be a leader of a group of men. He can take that and apply it to obviously running a NASCAR team, but he can't exactly know how to build an engine. He can't exactly know where to allocate certain funds, or where to allocate certain time. He can't know that type of things. He has to obviously hire the right people that are going to then tell him this is the best choice. So of course he's going to surround himself with a good amount of people, executives, family members, whomever, that are going to help advise him as far as the decisions that he has to make. It can't exactly, and so that's why I say the idea that Chris can just have ultimate control over any decisions that when it comes to the competition side of things. The fact that he has to run things through, let's say 10 people and get their approval does not surprise me because, again, it is just probably how they've ran it the entire time that the team has been around. Whoever is a Gibbs that works for the company, whoever has the last name Gibbs that works for Joe Gibbs Racing, doesn't want things being done without their approval. So that does not surprise me. I mean, they're going to have the excuse that my name's on the wall, so therefore anything that happens in this team is ran through me. So, speaking of Gibbs, the tweet thread continues where Gabehart talks about the 54 team. This is a quote from Chris Gabehart. I further expressed serious concerns about the management of JGR's number 54 car, which is one of JGR's 4 Cup Series entries. It was my view that the number 54 car should be managed and held accountable in the same manner as the organization's other cars. Instead, the number 54 was managed directly by Coach Gibbs, and everyone in the organization knew it. Beginning in early 2025, Coach Gibbs repeatedly pressured me to take over as crew chief of the number 54 car. I consistently declined, explaining that as competition director, I did not believe this was the right move, that it would undermine the long-term development of the team, and that I did not want to be crew chief of the number 54 or any other car. Despite my objections, Coach Gibbs and ownership continued pressing, and I eventually conceded to the pressure by first helping the number 54 team more behind the scenes, and then, beginning in June 28th of 2025, by publicly serving as the crew chief and calling the races on Sundays. The quote continues, I also identified specific examples of the number 54 team's differential treatment that undermined my position as competition director. For example, key personnel decisions were made without my counsel or input despite my role as competition director. And critically, the number 54 driver, Ty Gibbs, was not held to the same meeting attendance standards as others on the team. Gabehart admits that he did take photos on his cell. Okay, so that goes on to something else. Let's pause there. This has blown up all over social media all week long, leading into this week at COTA. Ty Gibbs was the talk of the fucking town. And funny enough, this comes off the heels of me. If you listen to the last episode, there were 2 specific drivers that I touched on that this year they have to make a statement. That they have very much so underperformed in the equipment that they have available to them. And this is the year that they need to step up. One of those was Alex Bowman, which I might touch on him later. He had, we'll say, personal issues during the race. He had something was going on. No one really knows, publicly at least. He felt sick, understandably. And there's a lot of guys that had their cool suits fail and had to tough it out. And I mean, God, you look, we're getting off topic here, but if you looked at AJ Allmendinger after the race, God, he looked like he was on death's door. He was pale white as he was getting carted off pit road. So I won't harp on Alex too much. I mean, he quit with 20 to go. I really don't know how bad it really was. Maybe he felt like he was literally about to pass out. If that's the case, understandable. I don't want you passing out going into one of the corners and just, being unconscious as you drive yourself way too fast through a corner and into a wall. I don't want that. But Alex was one of the guys who I called out last week, and it was Ty Gibbs who was the other one, who I said, and I made it very clear, I did not ever think that he would be fired. I did not ever think that he would be let go. There was no way that I think that he works for any other or drives for any other team. And this is a year, though, that he needs to take a next step. he still had the excuse somewhat of like, he's still young and he still has potential to improve, whereas Alex Bowman doesn't really have that excuse anymore. But Ty really has to take that next step this year. And me saying that, and this now following it, and hearing the idea that Ty gets such superficial treatment that he really is treated with kid gloves compared to everybody else on the team. I think to me, that doesn't speak more so to Ty. And some people might not like this, but let's be honest here. If you are a young 20-something-year-old kid, and your entire life you have been privileged because you have been a part of a rich family where basically whatever avenue of life you wanted to go down, whatever job you wanted to pursue, you were going to have any sort of funding, or you're going to have any sort of, the best coaches or the best equipment or the best whatever. If he wanted to go the sports route, or he could go to the best schools, have the best teachers, whatever. You're privileged in that sense where you've had everything, the best available to you at all times. And him choosing racing and very obviously having, again, the best equipment available to him compared to the field around him. I mean, it's obvious. The 18 car when he was in the ARCA series was by far the best. The 18 car, or the 54 car that he had in the Xfinity series at the time, now the O'Reilly series, obviously some of the best equipment. I would not be surprised if, even compared to the other JGR cars that were in the O'Reilly series at that time, that he had the best equipment compared to his teammates. And that does not surprise me. I mean, of course, if you're running a race team and say you have a child or a family member or whomever, you're going to provide the best for them. You're not going to intentionally make it harder for them. You're not going to intentionally cut corners or give somebody else something that you wouldn't give your own family. Of course, you're more than likely to give your own family members more. You're more than likely to give your own family members the best equipment, the best options, the best everything, because it's your family. And therefore, you're obviously not going to hold up your grandson or a family member from pursuing their dream of wanting to be a Cup driver and wanting to drive in the Cup Series as soon as possible. And do I think that he is so untalented that he doesn't belong in the Cup Series? No, I don't believe that. But if you were to ask me, talent-wise, compared to other drivers in the field, and maybe I should really sit down and do this one of these days, of like, take equipment out of it. Where do I think he ranks in talent-wise? If everyone were to have the same equipment, where do I think he ranks? I'm not sure as of right now he ranks in the top 20. I mean, you have to factor in the fact that, yes, he is a part of one of the top 3 best teams in the sport. It is a premier Toyota car where your 3 teammates are either consistently winning races in general, or if not winning championships, competing for a championship, and maybe should have won a championship by now. So when that is the standard, basically, and you are so obviously the 4th wheel, you're so obviously that 4th, just the extra bit that's on the end of the team, that's just this weird 4th car that's just never competitive. It sticks out like a sore thumb. So you already have that against you, and then you add on top of the fact that everyone within the organization as a whole understands that that's just the kid who's babied and is treated with kid gloves, so much so to the point where he doesn't feel obligated to be on the same schedule as everybody else, where he can come and go as he pleases. And not only is he allowed to do that, but there's nothing that anybody can do, and there's no one even within his family that steps in and forces him to be responsible, forces him to be held to the same standard as everyone else. And, maybe Austin Dillon at the time did the same things when he first started at RCR. And maybe there are instances of other drivers, because people, if you're a NASCAR fan, NASCAR is a very much so a family-oriented sport. There's a lot of second and third generation racers who have previously raced in NASCAR, and their family members, either direct sons or cousins or whomever, nieces or nephews, they follow in the footsteps of their previous generation of family members, and they get opportunities because of that. There's how many people who are currently within the sport right now who are either direct descendants of previous drivers or descendants of people who are just involved in the sport in general, whether they're executives on teams or they're crew chiefs or, whatever. They're part of the sport. So maybe there are stories that we haven't heard of, second, third generation drivers who have these same problems, but they're not out for the open for everyone to hear and see. Plus, not adding that with the obvious fact of Ty underperforming really makes him look bad. It is so obvious now at this point that in so many different ways, the future of Ty Gibbs is on, or the future of JGR is on Ty Gibbs. I mean, any one of those guys, any one of the other three could very easily come in and come out. Denny Hamlin will be done soon. He'll retire in the next couple of years, if not at the end of this year. Chase Briscoe, besides these last couple of years, has not been married to JGR, so he could very easily find himself a ride elsewhere down the line. And sure, Christopher Bell is perceived as the guy who's going to carry the flag for JGR in the future as their best driver, but he could very easily get upset with the situation that's over there right now, and he could easily move on. There are other good teams that would very easily take Christopher Bell, and as we know, plenty of guys, plenty of drivers in the past who you feel like, oh, they'll never leave their current team. There's very, very few people who have stuck with one team their entire career. Everyone seemingly moves around. But you know for sure that that 54 car is going to be there until Ty doesn't want to race anymore. And therefore, that 54 will be filled by Ty Gibbs. So now at this point, you have to ask yourself, if this is what the standard is for him, and the standard is different for others, who really is going to be willing to accept that and be a part of that team in the long run? Drivers, crew chiefs, engineers, people who feel like they're putting in their life's work here. They're trying their ass off. They're putting in overtime up the ass. They are pushing themselves to the limit. They're spending Saturdays and Sundays in the shop and hours and hours and hours of their life that they could be spending time with their family. They're spending dedicated to this craft, dedicated to try to improve the team. Meanwhile, the guy who's piloting the vehicles that they are trying to put out in the track to compete for wins is giving not even a half-ass worth of effort. And a lot of it, and this is why I don't put all of the blame on Ty, is because this environment has been allowed. It's allowed by his parents. It's allowed by his family members. It's allowed by the executives within the team. And it's allowed by Coach Gibbs. And yes, it could be on Ty. And maybe he could be a grown adult to actually step up and actually force himself to be responsible, force himself to be on time for certain meetings, to force himself to be truly dedicated to try to improve. But I would not be surprised if he is told, you're already very good. Like he's already been told his entire life, probably. You're very good. So when you're told in a privileged space, in a privileged echo chamber, that you're already very good, then you're already thinking to yourself, I don't need to practice then. If I'm already very good, then I don't need to try to improve because I'm already very good. What's the point of putting in extra hours in the sim? What's the point of putting in extra hours at the shop? What's the point of putting in extra hours if I'm already really good? He will probably win races in his career. He probably will. But the potential of him possibly being actually very good was there. He had all the potential in the world. He's obviously good on road courses. He demonstrated that this last weekend. He has good talent at road courses. But the ovals are a different animal for him that he cannot figure out. And I am now coming to the point where it feels like it's because he just doesn't care to figure it out. And, maybe I highly doubt that there's anybody out there that's being a Ty Gibbs apologist right now. But even for the very, very few people that are Ty Gibbs apologists who are sitting there going, well, you're going to take one guy's opinion as fact or one guy's claim as fact? Well, I'm not hearing anybody coming out refuting these claims yet. There's nobody on the JGR side who's came out and said, what Chris said is absolutely untrue. Denny Hamlin on his podcast didn't come out and flat out deny these claims. Nobody in the JGR camp, as far as I've seen, has came out and vehemently denied that Ty Gibbs is anything less than a perfect student. And that's why it's so concerning. Am I saying that Ty Gibbs is going to drag JGR down to the point where they are no longer a top team? No, because as long as they are the number one Toyota Cup team, they will always and forever be a competitor for championships. But it is a hole when you're paying for 4 cars to be competitive for wins and for championships, and you're guaranteeing that one of them will not be. And it's not because of he can't hack it. It's because he doesn't want to. It is concerning, at least. Let's finish up this thread here. Gabehart, it continues on after talking about the 54 team. Gabehart admits that he did take photos on his cell phone, but it was files that he had created or had a role in creating, and they were not going to be shared, as he has not done so. When it came to leaving the company, Gabehart was told to tell people he was, quote, on vacation, as the separation agreement was worked on. The offer from Spire Motorsports was unsolicited. Quote, following receipt of the offer from Spire on November 13th, 2025, I created a folder on my Google Drive named Spire that I used as my personal working space to evaluate the job offer and consider my options, since I understood the JGR and I were working towards a mutual separation agreement. I did access that folder after it was created. However, I did not use any confidential JGR information, in parentheses, including any confidential information that was contained in subfolders contained in that file, while working in the folder. At all times, I understood my confidentiality obligations to JGR and had no intent to violate those obligations. Gabehart says he personally paid for the forensic examination. Quote, the forensic examination was completed. The results confirmed what I had maintained from the outset. There is no evidence that I transmitted, distributed, used, or otherwise shared any JGR confidential information. No text messages, no email attachments, no dissemination whatsoever. A January 21st, 2026 email from the forensic examiner confirmed that he did not locate any text messages or email attachments with the files that JGR had previously identified as being of interest. This lawsuit is not about protecting trade secrets. It is about punishing a former employee for daring to leave. An injunction prohibiting me from working in this specialized field will not merely inconvenience me, it will effectively exile me from this profession. The harm in granting injunctive relief as requested by JGR extends beyond my immediate loss of income, which is substantial. My professional reputation and career trajectory will suffer significant damage if I am prohibited from working in this field. So that's the end of the... I gotta take a drink now. So that's the end of that tweet chain. By the way, I did see news that he is allowed to come back to work for Spire as well. So, he's not being prohibited from working anymore. Thank God for that. Here is also a post from Jeff Gluck, friend of the show, the day before. He tweeted, as part of the latest filing in JGR versus Chris Gabehart and now Spire. That is something also. Spire is now a part of this lawsuit. Gabehart's termination letter is included. So here's his termination letter. If you care to listen to it, and probably not even worth reading, but I'm going to go ahead and read it anyways. From the JGR, it says just Joe Gibbs Racing, February 9th, 2026, to Chris Gabehart. Mr. Gabehart, Joe Gibbs Racing, LLC, quote, JGR, hereby terminates your employment agreement under Section 4BI and 3 and 4. I don't know. JGR has made this determination in good faith based on your violations of Section 5 of the employment agreement. JGR policies and procedures relating to the safeguarding of confidential information and the North Carolina Trade Secrets Protection Act and Federal Defend Trade Secrets Act of 2016. Specifically, you misappropriated JGR's confidential information and trade secrets to personal accounts and devices with the intent to use and or disclose this information to a direct competitor of JGR's. This behavior, which was recently confirmed by a third-party forensic review of your personal cell phone and personal Google Drive account. Signed, Joe Gibbs. Going back here, I'm just reading some of these more tweets. There's one from Bianchi, basically talking about that Spire was added to the lawsuit. And then on February 28th, here's a quote from Chris Gabehart. This one was tweeted by Bob Pockris, so we're getting everyone in here. Bob Pockris, friend of the show. Chris Gabehart commented today because he was at St. Pete, still working for Spire. This is Chris Gabehart's new amended quote after all the stuff came out about Ty. So this is Gabehart talking about Ty Gibbs. Quote, with all the momentum the sport currently has, we have everything we come off of in the... See, this is why... Bob, proofread the stuff. Proofread the stuff. The quote literally says, with all the momentum the sport currently has, we have everything we come off of in the off season. You put in the twice. Anyways, we have everything we come off of in the off season. I think this is a very unfortunate spot for the sport to be in the public light. In my view, this is something that could have been taken care of behind closed doors, but I can respect the fact that we are working our way through it and will continue to do so as long as it takes. I feel bad for all the publicity that this has drawn away from the sport of NASCAR. I understand the public narrative that has come along with the things that I have been forced to say in public about the 54 and thus Ty Gibbs and the family. But those have nothing to do with this. As a matter of fact, deep down, I believe Ty is a very good person. Isn't that nice? He's a great guy who has been dealt a really tough hand the last 3 years, him and his family and all of that, and I feel really bad about that. I share a ton of sympathy because of where I've been in trying to help, in a small way, to get through that, and I'm thankful for all the family has done for me. But unfortunately, the 54 car and everything that went on last year, starting early in October of 2024 to where we are now, is an important part of my story. It's an important part of how I've gotten here. And if this is something that we're going to continue to have to talk about publicly, then I've got to continue to tell my story so it's understood. This is not about Ty personally. This is not about the family personally. It's more about understanding my story and why we got to where we got, because it is relevant and does matter to me. So here's the thing. With all of that said, basically, and long story short, Chris said some shit in trying to defend himself, and in doing so called out Ty and Joe, basically saying, look, they are the ones at fault. They're the ones who have no idea what they're doing, and because I called them out for not knowing what they were doing, they got butthurt and punished me. In some ways, I would not be surprised if that was true. And also at the same time, his idea of saying this lawsuit is because of the fact that, you know, it has nothing to do with anything I actually did. It's more so just butthurt that I'm gone and I'm working for somebody else. See, now that quote, though, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense considering the fact that they fired him. They got rid of him. Claiming that, you know, he shared confidential information. Now, if it was more so that he got so offended at the fact that he was promised X, Y, and Z, and he was undermined and not listened to, and got so frustrated that he was like, I'm done. I can't deal with it anymore. I quit. And then they turned around and said, no, you don't. You're not quitting. You're fired. And you're fired because of X, Y, and Z. Then I'd say fuck Joe Gibbs and fuck JGR as a whole. This is more so Who do you believe? Your personal beliefs and who you think is really telling the truth here is more so going to sway you one way or the other. Here's my thing. This is my personal opinion. One side has been very vocal about giving their side of the story. The other has not. Chris has been very vocal about saying everything that he has said. He's the one with all the quotes out here. He's the one saying everything, giving his side of the story. Joe Gibbs has not said anything. JGR, as far as I've seen, have not really released a press statement saying their side of the story or saying he's lying, he's not telling the truth or whatever. They've been pretty quiet. Ty has not addressed it. So to me, the fact that one side is willing to be very vocal and give their personal opinions on this and say this is what my side of the story is, and the other side is not seemingly willing to do that, kind of paints the picture that maybe Chris is probably telling the truth. And that's why they're so quiet about it. Them being JGR. There's so many issues with this. When this lawsuit came out last week, I did not think it would spark this much talk this quickly. I figured that stuff would be coming out weeks or months down the line as, discovery would end up happening and whatever other information would end up coming out with, time. I did not think that a quote like this would come out this quickly. To me, it is, as I said earlier, Ty is literally the future of this team, whether any JGR fan likes it or not. This guy ain't going anywhere. He'll be in that car for as long as he wants to be. Doesn't matter about sponsorship issues or whatever. They'll find sponsorship to piece together to make sure that they are allowed and continuously keep him in the car and keep that car somewhat competitive. Until Ty doesn't want to do it anymore, he'll be in there. And that's why in so many ways, like I said earlier, I can't totally blame Ty for being allowed to do these things. I can blame Ty for not being an adult and recognizing when he's not being responsible himself. I can blame him for that. You're goddamn right, he's at fault for that. But as far as the environment that is allowed, and this is also why I think Chris, at the end of the day, did kind of feel bad. And why he said in that quote at St. Pete about, I feel bad the fact that this has really put a bad look on Ty. It's always the go-to thing is to say, well, he's a nice guy, though. It doesn't change the fact that Ty is not responsible, doesn't show up to work on time, doesn't come to meetings on time, doesn't really probably give a whole lot of effort compared to the other guys, therefore doesn't have as much care, doesn't put as much time either in the shop or in the sim or whatever compared to all the other guys. Never mind that, but he's still a nice guy, though. He's still a good guy. He's a nice kid. At the end of the day, the expectations were always high because of the last name and the fact that we all knew that he was going to be in that car forever. But now it's just, it's a really bad look. And this can have long-term effects in the sense that now sponsors that may or may not have been interested in sponsoring the 54 into the future are not going to be as nearly interested because they see, well, this guy We're going to sponsor a guy who doesn't care, doesn't want to get better, doesn't want to improve, doesn't care about the sport that he's involved in. I'm not going to be too interested in giving money to that guy or giving money to that team or giving money to that organization, an organization that allows its workers to, family or not, slack off and not care. That's not exactly a good look. So I assume we'll have more updates on this in the following weeks, but I will reiterate, to end this Ty Gibbs thing, I will reiterate what I said last week. If Ty wants to be taken seriously, if Ty wants to have anybody talking about him, anybody thinking about him, any more interest that sponsors may have in him, or any sort of bright look on that car's future, this is the year to step up. This is the year to start winning races. This is the year to start getting competitive, finishing in the top 10, finishing in the top 5, consistently, running up front, leading laps, winning races. Let's put it this way. Granted, it's 2 drafting tracks and a road course, so we aren't really getting into the nitty-gritty of, ovals yet until this weekend. But through the first 3 weeks, you got 2 Toyotas up there who are dominating the field as far as consistency. You got one guy on your own team, the 19 car, who's shown good speed. The 20 as well has shown good speed. Hamlin's been kind of a little bit slow to start the season, but again, it's drafting tracks and a road course. And then you've got Ty. Now, Ty had a good run at the road course this past weekend, but again, that's his bread and butter. It's more so now comes the time where, okay, now can you finish top 10 next week at Phoenix? Can you get stage points? Can you lead laps? And when I mean lead laps, I don't mean lead laps during a pit cycle. I mean get to the front and lead legitimate green flag laps during a run. Top 5s, top 10s consistently. We need to see that. If we're going to have any idea in thinking that you're going to be any good, that you're going to really actually be a key part in what is perceived as one of the top teams in NASCAR? Or are you just going to take up a spot that somebody else probably deserves more? This is the year, Ty. Figure it out. All right. Moving on from that, we'll wait for some more updates as the weeks go on. I cannot imagine that we probably won't get more updates here in the next couple of weeks. So I can't wait for that. Small thing, also, just a side note, no one's talking about this because it's the ARCA series. More NASCOURT stuff. I just wanted to pass over this. Nitro Motorsports is also suing Leland Honeyman Jr. Basically over a disagreement of which car he would race. This just came out, I think, the other day, or a few days ago now. The first tweet I saw was from February 27th, and it basically is just a court document saying, that Nitro Motorsports is, suing Leland Honeyman Jr. Not a whole lot of, I didn't read too much into this. It's, preliminary stuff again, very, very recent. Might go somewhere, might go nowhere. We'll see. But just another example of it's just so weird that over this last half of a year, you never heard too much about legal issues within the sport that are involving people suing each other. And now all of a sudden there's just 3 in the last 6 months, one giant one that lasted months and months, and then another 2 that just popped up over this last week or so. very, very odd timing of all of this. But another thing that was released this past weekend was the new NASCAR All-Star format. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and I'm going to read. I should have had this available. I apologize, but let's go ahead and take a look at this. So the new All-Star race format for 2026 at Dover. We're going to go ahead and read off the actual format here, just so everybody kind of understands and is caught up on this. So this season's revamped format is going to be a 3-segment, 350-lap event where every driver will be on track. So that is all chartered cars will be at the race, a part of the All-Star race. There will be no All-Star Open, which immediately I don't like. The All-Star Open to me was a fun way of featuring guys who, you know, anybody obviously who didn't automatically qualify for the All-Star race. So kind of like all the secondary guys, it was an opportunity for them to be somewhat featured. And so for me, it is quite upsetting. Therefore, also, you know, or actually, excuse me, I was about to say there's no fan vote, but here we go. Returning elements include the driver's eligibility requirements and the All-Star fan vote and the pit crew challenge. So, the pit crew challenge returns. That'll be Saturday, May 16th, as well as qualifying will be on May 16th. The actual format is this. So the full field will compete in segment 1 and segment 2 for 75 laps each, followed by the final 200-lap segment of the NASCAR All-Star race featuring only 26 drivers. Qualifying on Saturday sets the lineup for segment 1, and segment 2 will feature the top 26 inverted at the start, while the remainder of the field will line up based on the segment 1 finishing positions. All laps will count with NASCAR standard procedures in effect during the final segment. The competition break will take place at or around lap 225. Eligibilities are all the same. The top 25 drivers of segment 1 and segment 2 will get into the third and final long 200-lap segment, and then the 26th spot will be voted by obviously the fan vote. Here's the thing. Like I said, my only main gripe with this is the fact that there's no All-Star Open. I feel like getting rid of the All-Star Open is a mistake to me. It is an opportunity to really feature guys who are somewhat secondary guys who don't get the notoriety from week to week because they aren't running up front. An opportunity to run up front. Granted, it's the All-Star Open, but it's an opportunity to feature those guys a bit more for a specific event. And to me, it's a vital part of the All-Star Weekend is the All-Star Open. I mean, that's been a part of the All-Star race or the All-Star Weekend. I mean, as far as I know, since its inception. So, to me, it's a mistake to get rid of that. The other parts of it, take it or leave it. It's the All-Star race. I mean, none of this stuff really surprises me as far as them trying their best to make the All-Star race a bit more interesting, a bit more different. I mean, remember the years of them, their big idea years ago, back when we were still running the Gen 6 car, one of the years was, hey, you know what'll get people really interested in the All-Star race? If we put lights under the car. You know, when you go and see like people's stupid ass cars driving down the road and they got like those LED lights along the bottom of their car to light up the bottom. Yeah, we're going to put those on NASCARs, and that'll be what gets people interested in the All-Star race. Not the actual race itself, it's just the lights. The lights will get people interested. is the All-Star race. They kind of beat this thing to death. I think they really showed that they just don't care about the All-Star race when they moved into Dover. I mean, Dover to me is an amazing track. I hope it's never off the schedule. It's a fun race to watch. Close quarter racing. But to me, All-Star race doesn't scream Dover. To me, it has always screamed Charlotte or some type of short track. That's why when they run the Clash at Bowman Gray, if you were to ask me, yeah, do I prefer the Clash at Daytona? Yeah. Because that's where it's always been. That was the tradition. It's an opportunity for guys to get their cars on the track who are, top end names and, dust the rust off of their racing them, since they haven't raced in how many months, kind of get the rust off of them. But now guys, they race all year. There's no breaks. It doesn't matter if the NASCAR season's over. Guys are racing dirt or they're racing in the sim all, during the off season or whatever. So the Clash doesn't even really feel as important. It doesn't feel as interesting. It doesn't feel as fun. Not to mention the fact that the Clash, they've kind of just, they've took all creativity out of anything to do with the Clash. Now it's just another race. It's just another exhibition race that to fill up a weekend. There's nothing special about it. And now they've taken another special thing about the All-Star race away, about the All-Star weekend away. The All-Star Open was something different. It was something fun. Having to see guys try to genuinely race their way into the All-Star race was fun. Now they're going to throw everyone out on the track. They're just going to throw everyone out there. All at the same time, and everyone has to try to race their way in. To me, it's just, it's another mistake. NASCAR was making a lot of good decisions recently. This is one of the bad ones. We're back to making more bad decisions, I guess. So, that being said, let's dive into the weekend here. I don't want this to be a very long episode. We're already an hour in. I don't want this to be too long of an episode. And it's road course weekend at COTA this past weekend, so it shouldn't take too long to run through these. We had 3 races. The trucks, let's run through all of these really quick. The Truck Series race was decent. Them racing in St. Pete, it's odd because when I think St. Pete, not only do I think IndyCar race, but the track is almost seemingly made, obviously, for more so IndyCar racing to me. I thought the racing was fine. It's road course racing. What do you expect? They're not going to be the most entertaining races on the planet, but they were fine. I said last week, I really called out Lane Riggs, and I said he has had a rough start to the season. They've just not looked like they've had speed the first 2 weeks, and they really need to pick it up, and funny enough, it did not take long. They turned it around real quick. They came to St. Pete with a truck that could win, and they did win. They led the most laps in the race. They looked like the fastest car for most of it. So shout out to Lane Riggs. He did not take long to shut me up about his criticisms, or about my criticisms towards him. James Hinchcliffe, funny enough, I don't know how much racing he's doing recently, but he was able to hop into a truck and finish top 10. Granted, again, a road course. Guy races probably mostly road courses in his life. So, not the most shocking thing, but hey, still, guy who's how old and doesn't race trucks ever. I don't even think he's ever raced a truck. Being able to go out there in a road course and finish top 10 is still something to be proud of, and still something to give credit to. The Rams starting to show better. They had Colin Braun out there. I haven't heard Colin Braun's name in God knows how many years. I mean, good Lord. The last time I heard his name was mid 2000s. But Colin Braun came back to drive for Ram, and he was the highest finishing Ram truck in the field. He finished P9 in that 25 car, the 25 All-Star car that they have. So, hey, good for him. It's probably great for him to come back and finish top 10 in his first truck race back. That's awesome for him. The next highest finishing Ram truck was Justin Haley, so we'll see if Justin can get a little bit better here as the season goes on, get a bit more used to driving those trucks again and be competitive for the wins towards the end of the season here. Hopefully he'll, but then again, like I said, we've ran 3 races. 2 of them have been drafting tracks and 1 of them has been a road course. Next week is when we really start to see it. And funny enough, we won't see the trucks until Darlington. So it'll be a while until we see the trucks again. But as far as O'Reilly Series and the Cup Series, that's where, this next week is where we'll really start to see some stuff. Dario Franchitti was in the race as well. Didn't get the finish he wanted, but he was running up towards the front, towards the top 10 for a good amount of it, even though he finished P27 on the field. Still had himself a good run for most of the race. Looking through some of these guys, again, Mini Tyrell, I guess we're going to have to wait for the road courses, or not the road course, the short tracks, for him to hopefully show up and show some speed. Same thing with Brendan Queen. Waiting for some ovals to pop up here, and we'll see if he can actually show some speed here. But besides that, a lot of the same guys in some of the same spots. Not too surprising about certain guys finishing where they did. I think the only real surprise was the Gio Ruggiero finishing back in 25th, but he'll be just fine. He qualified P2. He had some stuff going on during the race, so we'll wait for, like I said, now is when the season really starts. We're going to head to Phoenix this weekend. Trucks we'll see at Darlington in a few weeks, so that's when the season will really start. But I thought the race was fun. Not the greatest road course races that I had ever seen, but still pretty good races. Both truck race and IndyCar race. I did also get to catch the IndyCar race, and that was a pretty good race itself. So now we move to COTA. To no surprise, SVG gets the win in the O'Reilly Series race. I'll say this very quickly, and then we'll dive into the biggest talking point of this race. I said last week, hey, for all those Austin Hill haters out there, don't worry. He won't be running top 5 or top 10 going forward here. He won't be up there towards the front of the road course. He'll be struggling a bit. He'll be 8th or 10th or whatever. Yeah, I was wrong. He was still up front. He finished P2 in this race, led some laps, was towards the front all race long, was competitive. Did you ever think he was going to win? No. It was either going to be Shane Van Gisbergen or it was going to be Connor Zilic if he could avoid a wreck this weekend. But still, the fact that he was up there, finished second, was up towards the front for most of the race. I mean, hey, scored the most points as well as far as anybody who was a part of the O'Reilly Series. People can say he's untalented, but maybe this is the year. I'm not going to say it yet. I'm not. We're going to wait a few more races. Like I said, I'm going to wait till we start to see some more regular tracks pop up on the schedule before I make any sort of claims. We are only 3 races in. Like I said last week also, it's almost like you don't want to be the guy that peaks early. You don't want to be the guy that wins a bunch of races early in the season and then falls off as the season goes on. You want to be the guy that peaks late. But Austin Hill, winning races, Still running up front here at a road course. We'll see how he does here at Phoenix next weekend. Keep an eye on him, man. Keep an eye on him for sure. Let's go ahead and talk about Corey Day, though. I said last week, there's a reason why I point to Corey Day and I say that's a guy who makes dumb moves, and I don't say the same thing about Carson. Most of the time it's because when you see Carson make the moves that he does, there's intention behind it. There's an idea behind it. It's usually later in the race where there's an actual win on the line, where if he makes this move, there's a chance that he could win the race. He's going for it. Corey Day in this race, coming off the heels of the problems that he had last week in Atlanta with Ryan Sieg, which there was a quote that came out during the week that Corey supposedly reached out to Ryan to apologize and basically said to him, if you want to talk, call me, and Ryan didn't call him back. And so it ended there. No shit, he doesn't want to talk to you. You fucking spun him 4 laps into the race. He's not going to want to talk to you. You have to still just apologize if you want to apologize. That being said, there's a difference between spinning the opposition as far as somebody who's on a different team or somebody who's a part of a different manufacturer. And then there's spinning a teammate. Now, I get it. He's technically part of Hendrick Motorsports. It's not a Junior Motorsports car. Get the fuck out of here. That's a Junior Motorsports car. Hendrick Motorsports and Junior Motorsports, as far as cars that are being fielded out there, they're one and the same when it comes to the O'Reilly series. Give me a break. So he basically spun his teammate, who, by the way, during that race had brake issues and had car issues, went to the back, trudged all the way towards the front, and then ends up just going through the S's, or coming to the S's, just gets hooked. Corey completely misjudges it, turns across him, spins him out going through the S's, and just, again, ruins Connor Zilich's day. And then you hear Corey Day's quotes, like his quote after the race. And you know what? Let's pull this up because I want to actually have people listen to it if you didn't get to listen to it. And I also haven't heard, I heard it, but I don't remember everything that he said in his post-race interview. So let's actually find the CW post-race interview because that's the one I want to hear. If I can find it. It's just not coming up on YouTube. Maybe they got rid of it on YouTube because of how bad it was. Let's go ahead. I'm killing time here, guys. I'm killing time here while I find the interview. But speaking of Connor, though, while I find this interview, Connor, I mean, he had a disastrous weekend, to say the least. I mean, that dude, multiple wrecks in the O'Reilly Series race, had so many issues in the Cup race. I mean, the guy who just, I mean, bad luck after bad luck after bad luck after bad luck after bad luck. This interview is not coming up anywhere. Post CW post COTA interview. Where is this goddamn fucking interview? Seriously, did they just wipe it off the fucking internet? What the fuck? Seriously, where the fuck is this? Fuck it. You know what? I mean, long story short, what he ended up saying in this interview was like, he pointed at his car. So he's asked like, "Hey, what happened with the contact there with Connor?" And then he immediately jumps to like, "Yeah, the oil pan in the car is just we're having problems with the oil pan." And yeah, I mean, I kind of, and I believe he caught himself, but he almost blamed it on Connor, where he almost kind of turned and basically blamed Connor for cutting across his nose. I mean, I'm looking on X now because like you almost have to listen to this thing. I gotta find it if I can find it. I mean, the dude talked in circles for a solid 2 minutes, trying his best to basically make it seem like it was not his fault. And when confronted about it, he just had nothing to say. He had nothing of merit to say at all. I'm not finding it anywhere. It's insane that this fucking interview is not anywhere. Fuck is wrong with people? Post that shit on the fucking internet. God damn. It's the only thing I wanted to hear out of Corey Day, or yeah, Corey Day at all. And yet it's not anywhere in the internet. Fucking dumb. Anyways, he basically blamed Connor for it. He pointed the finger at him and was like, "Yeah, well, I mean, my oil pan," and then he kind of cut across my nose. It's like, brother, what? What do you mean he cut across your nose? What are you talking about? You fucking turned and hooked him because you misjudged the entire. You were obviously next to him, completely misjudged it, turned, and to me, I just don't understand how when you make an obvious mistake, even Carson has the ability to be self-aware enough that when he does make a mistake, he'll say, "Hey, I didn't mean to do that." But Corey can't even have the dignity to come out and be like, "Yeah, I didn't mean to do that." It's not hard for him to just in the interview say, "I feel bad about turning a fellow Chevy and a teammate. I did not mean to do that. It was my mistake." And then talk about the rest of your day. It's not hard to do that. And yet, for him, it seems like an impossible task. Where he was like, he couldn't say it. It was like he was trying to say anything other than "I'm sorry." And Connor very obviously and very correctly pointed out, like, yeah, it's frustrating because that dude sits there and he just stares at me from the other side of the pit road and just doesn't do anything. He doesn't want to come up to me. He doesn't motion for me to come to him. There's nothing there. He just stands there. To me, I think if it's somebody on the other team, if it's an opposite manufacturer, if it's an opposite team, it's somebody that you're not associated with, that's different. But when it's your own teammate, it's your own team. Like you're supposed to be working together. You're supposed to be helping each other here. Yeah, you can race each other hard, but like hooking your own teammate and then not apologizing for it is like, at least Denny Hamlin, who was one of the people who ended up wrecking Connor, had the dignity on his own fucking podcast to go, "Yeah, I had no idea that I was the one at fault for that, but my bad. I feel bad that happened to him. I'm sorry." And that's a guy who has no association with Connor whatsoever. And yet Corey doesn't has the wherewithal to just say, "I'm sorry." It's not hard to do. And the guys in the broadcast very rightly pointed it out, like, it's one thing to make a mistake and it's one thing to, apologize for it then and whatever, but there's no remorse. He's done it 2 weeks in a row. It's not even like he was going for a spot and shot the gap and overcooked it, and that's why he spun him. It's a matter of no self-awareness. No self-awareness on track. No awareness of where your car is positioned. That got him to make that mistake and got him to make the decision to just hook a teammate. People could say he's talented, but there's obviously not enough talent to have car wherewithal, to have the wherewithal of where you are on track and where other guys are around you. This may be Kyle Larson's protege, but like I said last week, Kyle Larson isn't exactly known for his best decision making. Just saying. As far as the rest of the, I keep almost saying Xfinity. It's been happening for a while. As far as the rest of the O'Reilly Series race, again, another just regular road course race. Brendan Poole had himself a top 10. That's something to point out that's worth. Brent Cruz, why is a 17-year-old in this race? Why are we allowing minors to be in the O'Reilly Series? That's something I don't like that. It's the same thing with like the Keelan Harvick thing. It's like, why are we signing 13-year-old children? Why are we having 17-year-olds in the O'Reilly Series? I mean, hey, Cruz finished 6th, and he had himself a good run. Good for him. I still am not a fan of allowing a 17-year-old to race in the series right below the Cup Series. I'm not even too much of a big a fan if he was running the trucks. Unless it's like a short track or, even that. I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of it personally. Some other small things, like I said, Connor he had quite literally the worst luck in a single weekend I think I've ever seen somebody have. I mean, good Lord. Car problems earlier in the race. He was running up front, had to claw himself back to the front, got spun towards it once he got to the front. He still finished 21st. So he was still obviously, if not number one, the number 2 guy out there. And again, no surprise, SVG wins the race walking away. No one's surprised by that. Everyone expected that. And now to the Cup Series race. Before I can talk about anybody else, we have to talk about the obvious. History was made. I'm surprised it took me this long to talk about this. Tyler Reddick won for the first time in NASCAR history, the first 3 races to start the season. He won the 500 to start the year, Atlanta last week, and this week won at COTA. I said it was a possibility last week. I don't think I had him picked to win. I think I probably had either SVG or Connor Zilic to win the race. I was more leaning towards SVG, more so with him having more experience in this car and Connor having just less time in the Cup car. That maybe that would be the difference. But the fact that Tyler has been on it, yeah, drafting tracks take a lot of luck. There was some luck involved in the Daytona win. There was some luck involved in the Atlanta win. But there was no luck involved in this one. He was the best car. He led 58 laps. No one else led more than 11. It was obvious. I mean, even there were times where it seemed like guys could somewhat hang with him for a bit, but no one had the long run speed that Tyler Reddick had. Kudos to him. I said after he won Daytona, I don't really feel one way or the other about him. It's not, I don't hate him. I don't love him. He just kind of exists. And maybe he is one of those guys where personality-wise he just exists. But you cannot sit there now and deny his talent. This year, again, you wonder about peaking too early. And maybe some people might be like, that's not really a thing, whatever. It is. It's been shown to be a thing. And not just NASCAR, but in sports in general, where you don't want to be the guy who's good right out of the gate. And yeah, he's opened up a gigantic point lead now over the entire field, where you got Denny, who's going to obviously sit there and praise him and say, he might finish top 3 in the chase by the end of the season now. It might be a lock that he'll be there. Yeah, it's going to take a lot of time for people to catch up, but understand there's 26 races before we even see the chase. We still have 23 to go. There's still a lot of time where Tyler Reddick can have a lot of issues and the cars maybe aren't there towards the end of the season. He runs into a lot of bad luck. It's a real possibility. I mean, we saw another Toyota car who was running really well in this race. They had a transaxle issue where nothing that Chase Briscoe did wrong, was running well. He led 8 laps himself, and he had car troubles and ended up finishing dead last. Nothing that he did wrong, just happenstance. It's still very early into the season. We are 3 weeks in to a 26 race regular season. There's still 23 races left until we even see the chase. Yes, has Tyler Reddick opened up a gigantic point lead over the rest of the field? Absolutely. And is it going to probably take a very long time for people to catch up to him? Absolutely. But to stamp this idea that all of a sudden now there's no way he's dropping out of the top 3. Yeah, there's a chance. Do I think he will? Like I said earlier in this episode, I want to see how these next few weeks go. I want to see how Vegas goes. I want to see how Phoenix goes. I want to see, really what I more want to see is when these guys hit the West Coast swing. Once they come out of the West Coast swing, then I want to see where the points sit then. I want to see who wins those races. Because when you go to Vegas, Phoenix, whatever races are after that, I can look at the schedule here again. But when you go to those races, let's take a look at the schedule here. Phoenix, Vegas, Darlington, Martinsville. I mean, these next 3 is where I really want to see. This is where we really get into the nitty-gritty of things. Phoenix, Vegas, and Darlington. Those are much more regular tracks where it's like, okay, if he's still rolling over people over these next 3 weeks, even if he's finishing top 5 still over these next 3 weeks, even though he's not winning races, it doesn't matter. I mean, the guy is still, in my eyes, if he finishes top 5 over the next 3 weeks, it's like, all right, you got me now. Okay. He'll probably finish top 3. Because now we're getting into regular tracks, regular races, ovals, something that we'll actually be doing for the rest of the season more often. The actual meat and potatoes of the series. So, regardless, we saw history on Sunday. We got to see something that we've never seen before in NASCAR. Somebody win 3 straight races to start the season. So, kudos to Tyler. Congratulations to 2311. God dang, the Fox broadcast cannot stop talking to Michael Jordan every time. Don't talk to Billy Scott, the guy who actually contributes to the team more than just financially. Don't talk to, anybody else. Only talk to the guy who just provides the money, who's the big name. Only talk to Michael Jordan. Just keep talking to him. Some other small key pieces of the race. Like I said, SVG being up there towards the end, competing for the win. I was surprised it was not closer than it was. I really was. I thought that if he wasn't winning, it was going to be close. It was obvious, though, that the 97 car was not nearly as good as the 45, just as a car wise. I mean, SVG though showed, even without having the car there, that he has all the talent in the world and then some when it comes to these things. And he can take so much more out of a car that doesn't have race winning speed and make that sucker look like it's got race winning speed there at the end. I mean, the way he was driving that thing had me thinking for a moment. It's like, all right, well, if there was a moment there where he was closing the gap on Tyler, and then obviously Tyler drove away from him, but there was a moment there where it was like, oh my God, is SVG going to run Tyler down here at the end and win this thing? Because again, you have that thought in the back of your head. It's like, is somebody really going to win 3 races in a row to start the season? How hard is that? But I mentioned Ty earlier. He finished 4th. And, it says something when you had literally everyone and their mother criticizing you all week long leading up to this race at COTA. And I think it says a lot also about Ty as far as his ability to step up this weekend and actually have a good run, finish well. Some people say, yeah, but it was pit strategy and so. Yeah, but there's still other guys behind him that were on the same exact strategy, and he was one of the guys that finished the top end out of all those guys. McDowell was on the same strategy. He beat him. Larson was on the same strategy. He beat him. Allmendinger was on the same strategy. He beat him. There are other guys who are on the same exact pit strategy and he was, and he was faster than all those guys. He was able to really get through the field pretty well. He really was. So you got to give credit where credit is due. He got himself a top 5 this week. Now, do it again next week. And the week after that. And the week after that. Continuously keep doing this. And then you'll continuously get more credit. 1 week is not going to fix all of those problems. So let's see it happen again next week, Ty. Another good run for Michael McDowell. Doesn't surprise me too much here that he had himself another top 5 run at a road course. Like I said earlier about Allmendinger, I mean, some of these guys, his cool suits went out. I assume that's what happened to Allmendinger, is his cool suit went out. If you go back and you look at Allmendinger after the race, he looked like on death's door. That dude, he looked pale white. Like when he was on the ground and they kept shooting him on the ground, and then had him on the gurney and was rolling him away. When he was being rolled away, he looked, all the color was out of his face. It looked rough. Assumingly the same thing happened to, like I said, Alex Bowman, who bowed out with 20 to go. Talking about Chase Briscoe here, another, like I said, had some transactional issue. He had a really good run there himself. Ross was having a good run and got into some late race problems there. He ended up finishing P35. Is not indicative of how well he ran in the race. Connor Zilic, I want to point this out again. I know I talked about him earlier about all of the problems that he had over the weekend. This was the one. Hamlin pointed it out on his podcast. I think you cannot deny, at least if he's not going to be good on ovals for a while, you have to watch out for him on the road courses for the rest of the year. If you're playing NASCAR fantasy games, or if you're betting on NASCAR, going forward, Watkins Glen, Sonoma, the San Diego race that we're eventually doing later in the year, put money on Connor. This dude is going to get more and more comfortable in this car. He's already very good on road courses. Let's put it this way. Dude ran up into the top 10, into the top 5, got spun, went all the way to the back, spent the rest of the race slowly but surely, taking his time, getting through the field, getting back towards the front. He got back to the front again, back to the top 10, reaching towards the top 5, and the same exact thing happened again. He got spun going into 1 on a restart and went all the way to the back again, and yet he still finished 14th. Connor had a quote after this race where he said this is the most proud he had as far as running. He thinks this was his best race. 1000% this was his best race. The adversity that, not even just this race, but this weekend, the adversity that he faced this weekend was unbelievable. And the fact that, like, he spent the entire weekend going from the front to the back, to the front, to the back, to the front, to the back, to the front, to the back. All I got to say is, like I said, look out for him. Look out for him at every road course going forward. Whether it's O'Reilly Series, Truck Series, Cup Series, keep an eye on him and put money on him probably in any road course going forward. It didn't get mentioned, but I am shocked that Ty Dillon was able to finish 16th on a road course. Unbelievable run for him as far as I'm concerned. Genuinely shocked that he finished 16th. I think it's more so just like you have the idea of like Ty Dillon's a 30th unbacked guy, and the fact that he was able to finish 16th on a road course is shocking to me. So I guess shout out to him for that. And we'll finish off this review of the race by talking about another Carson Hocevar incident. It was it was thrown at us in the most, like, I thought somebody was dying in the way that Mike Joy very much overreacted to Carson getting spun on the last lap. I mean, he screamed into that microphone and was just like, and Carson around, like, just out of nowhere. It startled me. It genuinely startled me that I was like, what the fuck, Mike? I thought he was like flipping with how much enthusiasm that he all of a sudden had. And all I can think to myself is like, he's talking like this is a race-changing event. Number one, it was already the last lap. So even a caution came out, Tyler was already going to win the race as it was. Like, nobody was going to catch him. Nobody was hot on his tail. No one was going to beat him. If the caution came out there, it wouldn't have mattered anyways. It wasn't like it was saving Tyler from having somebody catch him and pass him for the race win. But, I mean, Mike just screamed that out of nowhere. And if you go back and watch, I have no idea what the pretext was to this happening. But if you go back and you watch Eric Jones's onboard, coming out of the final turn, going down the front stretch there at COTA, Carson's on the outside, and it's Cole Custer on his inside there, and they're like beating and banging coming off the final corner, going to the front stretch. And Carson's, I think, like, he's outside. He's not actually on the track. He's like on the right side of the curbing. And he's trying to like bump himself back onto the track. And Cole just fucking, I don't know if he turned right or if he just kept going straight and was like, I don't fucking care. You're going in the grass. Cole completely puts Carson into the grass. Carson completely loses the car. He spins down to the inside and hits the inside wall as Eric Jones drives away. And it's like, I have no idea what pre-contexted that, but hey, you know what? I've never really thought that Cole Custer was interesting as a person either. You listen to him in interviews, oh my God, it's like the guy he's another one that just can't have a conversation in front of a camera. He can't handle it. He just smiles and is like obviously very nervous. But he's just the first guy to really do something back to Carson on track. Like I said, I have no idea what the reasoning for that was. As far as I know, up until this race, I hadn't heard of anything about Custer and Hocevar getting into it. And to have Custer just run him off the track like that, I have no idea where that even came from or why that even happened. And I haven't heard anything yet as far as to like what happened on track previously. Maybe Carson talked about it and I haven't seen it, but no idea what the context was to that, but it was a very interesting incident there. But hey, you know what? And everybody who says, oh, we're going to do something back to Carson, we're going to get him back, he's going to have retaliation on track, blah, blah, blah. Did not have Cole Custer on my bingo card as being the first person to actually do something back to him. So, hey, kudos to you, Cole. You might not have speed, but You're the first person to actually do something back to him. So, all right. With that being said, that concludes the COTA weekend. We're going to be heading into Phoenix. So let's go ahead and talk about our newly updated top 10. Our top 10 power rankings here on the Coop Radio podcast show episode thingy. Remember, this is a power rankings that is not based off standings. So I'm not just going to rattle off the top 10 in the standings. It is power rankings based off of recent success, recent performances, whatever. So, last week's top 10, number 10, I had Chris Buescher. Number 9, I had Ross Chastain. Number 8, Joey Logano. Number 7, Ryan Blaney. Number 6 was Zane Smith. Number 5 was Chase Elliott. 4 was Carson Hocevar. 3 was Chase Briscoe. 2 was Bubba Wallace. And 1 was Tyler Reddick. So that was after Atlanta last week. This week's newly updated top 10 following COTA. Number 10. You might hate it. You might not think it's deserved. But I have Ty Gibbs at number 10. He had himself a good run this past week at COTA, finishing 4th. Remember, it's based off recent performances. It's a combination of recent performances plus standings plus, like I said, average finish, just everything all combined together. He had himself a good finish, like I said, at COTA this past weekend, finishing 4th. He is also up there in the point standings. He's not too high up. I had him on, there he is, 17th in the point standings. So he's not too far down. He's still right within range of getting into that top 16. He's been kind of just somewhat okay for the first couple races. But this last one here, hey, it's enough to get him 10th on that list, all right? Some of those other guys, Zane Smith, Chris Buescher, they had rough races this past week, so Ty Gibbs can sneak in there at 10th. Number 9, speaking of sneaking in there, who wasn't there last week, Christopher Bell. Number 9, he had himself another good race as well. He finished 3rd at COTA. And hey, the point standings might not show it, considering the fact that he's 24th in the point standings right now. We're just behind Denny Hamlin in 23rd. But he was, if you remember last week at Atlanta, he was up there at the end. He was 2nd, and then outside lane coming towards the end of Atlanta. So he had himself positioned right. And Carson Hocevar helped him get to the back real quick there. So somewhat of a bad luck for Christopher Bell. And again, he made up for it this week with a nice top 3 finish. So a good run for him. Number 8. Some people might not think this is deserved after he had a pretty rough run this past weekend at COTA, but Carson Hocevar, number 77, is still at number 8. I'm not going to drop him completely off the top 10 because, hey, 1 week shouldn't punish you completely off the top 10 if you were been pretty good the previous couple weeks. He had a good race at Daytona, good run in Atlanta, both times bad luck. This time around, he's got to drop down the top 10 a bit. Rough COTA race. Oh, look to see him turn it around here this week in Phoenix. Number 7, back on the top 10 he was on the top 10 after Daytona. He's back in the top 10 this week. Michael McDowell at number 7. Had himself another good run. He's Mr. just be off strategy of everybody else. And he's gotten it to work this week. Was able to pit late, and just like Ty Gibbs, dice his way through most of the field and get himself a top 5. So another good run for Michael. Remember, he was one of the other guys towards the front at the end of the 500 as well, who had a chance of maybe winning. So Michael McDowell is 7th this week. 6th, I probably should have had him on this list last week, but I wasn't totally confident in putting him in the top 10. But I got to put him in there this week. SVG at number 6. He is surprisingly 5th right now in the point standings through 3 races. One of the guys who, yes, obviously it's inflated as far as how far up in the point standings he is because of the COTA race this past weekend, but regardless, your top 5 in points, you've had good runs. He was running up front at Atlanta multiple points during that race. He's been competitive at these drafting tracks through the first 3 races. He's been the 6th best guy, in my opinion, out there. Number 5, Ryan Blaney. Had himself another good run here this past week at COTA. He had himself 11 laps, led second most amongst everybody else, of course, behind Tyler Reddick. He's had flashes of good stuff at the previous drafting tracks. And, of course, he is also 4th in the point standings right now, so he's had himself a pretty good start to the season. Number 4, doesn't matter that his transaxle broke. Chase Briscoe's number 4. He had himself a great run until the transaxle broke at COTA this past weekend. He was running up front, almost had a chance to win both the 500 and the Atlanta race. As far as I'm concerned, that's still a very good run for him. He's number 4. Number 3, Chase Elliott. We reiterated on the first episode of this NASCAR podcast, as other people have also talked about, the Chase format best suits Chase Elliott because of the way that he races and the fact that his mode of racing is consistency, about being consistent every single week, trying to just get good runs, not winning every race, but consistently top 10, top 5, always getting points, always getting stage points, always in contention. Showing again, almost had a chance to win 500, was somewhat competitive for most of the race in Atlanta, and even though it wasn't really the greatest COTA race, he still ended up with the 7th place finish by the end of the thing. I mean, he was not in contention at all, it seemed, for most of the race to try to win, and yet he still found himself to finish top 10. Take what you can get out of the car that you're given and make the most out of it. That's what Chase Elliott's able to do. So he's number 3 on this list, and I don't think number 2 and number 1 are going to be too surprising to people here. Number 2, 2311's Bubba Wallace. Even though obviously he had a real good chance, almost had a lot of laps led at Daytona and Atlanta. Honestly, I was genuinely surprised that he finished P11 here at COTA. He has made it very clear, and I think that everybody kind of knows and understands that the dude is not good on road courses. Road courses are not his strong suit. He is if it's a top 10, it's a win for him kind of run for road courses compared to the rest of the field. It is very much a weakness of his. He's much more the oval guy. He's much more the drafting track guy. So, hey, great runs at Daytona and Atlanta. And once again, all things considered, P11 at COTA backs up another solid start to the season for him. He's P2 in points right now. He was just as close as Tyler Reddick was to winning at Daytona and Atlanta, like I said. But, of course, number 1, his teammate. You win 3 races in a row. It's a historic thing. The fact that Tyler Reddick is the first guy to ever do it is surprising. I think if you had asked me to pick anybody in the current field, who do you think would win the first 3 races? Who do you think would get this history-making moment? Who do you think would win the first 3 races of a season? I'd have to probably pick Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like that, as far as the guys who I could see winning at multiple drafting tracks and winning at a road course, I'd almost have to actually say probably Kyle Larson, because I don't know if Hamlin has the road course speed compared to anybody else, or compared to, some of the other road course ringers that we have now in the field. But no surprise, Tyler Reddick is number 1. Depending upon how Phoenix goes, he'll probably be number 1 next week. And it'll probably take another couple bad weeks for him to not be number 1. But we'll see how things go here at Phoenix. Couple more things to jump into here before we end the episode. Ass hats of the week. We only have 2. One is a real ass hat, and the other one is kind of more of a just like a, come on, man, get your shit together here. Why, at some point it's on you. Number 2 ass hat of the week. I'm sorry, Connor, but I got to give it to Connor Zilic. I mean, the dude, at some point, is it on you? Are all of them on you? No. But, get better at positioning, man. Get better at making decisions, staying away from certain people. Be smarter about maybe staying away from Corey Day if you understand that he's a quote, absolute hack. Haven't heard that quote before. So yeah, I gotta give Connor, if you're involved in 3 wrecks through two races, somewhat of it is your car positioning, man. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I'm just trying to pad the stats of asshats this week because I haven't been able to find too many. Mostly because I probably could have just filled all 3 slots with this one person. My number one asshat of the week is Corey Day. Spinning your own teammate for no absolute reason other than you're just terrible misjudgedness of going through a corner is, to me, just inexcusable. You get to the O'Reilly series, you at least need to be able to have car awareness. Be aware of your surroundings. Spotter's not going to be able to save you every time. You got to have somewhat of awareness of who's where around you and use your mirrors. Use your eyes. But with that being said, I think that's going to do it for us. I think I'll touch on this really quick. Kind of a little help for anybody out there who's playing the NASCAR fantasy game or anybody who wants to make bets. I'll go ahead and say this as far as guys to watch this weekend in Phoenix. I'll name 5 guys to keep an eye on this week here in Phoenix. Number 1 is obviously Tyler Reddick going for the 4-peat. Be the first time, I think, since 2007 that somebody has won 4 races in a row, which I believe that was Jimmy Johnson. It was either 2007 or 2008 was the last time that happened. And for Tyler Reddick to go 4 in a row to start the season would be astonishing, but with the type of momentum that he's on right now, I would not be surprised. Keep an eye on Tyler Reddick. Another guy to keep an eye on at Phoenix, I would keep an eye, going down the list here, keep an eye on William Byron. He's shown speed there. Keep an eye on Denny Hamlin. He almost had a chance at winning the championship here at Phoenix last year. He had good speed. Keep an eye on Kyle Larson, another guy who's had himself a top 10 here at COTA. He's always somebody good who pretty good at Phoenix as well. And kind of a dark horse, I would say, going down the list. Dark horse. If I'm going to pick a 5th guy, I'd want to pick a dark horse. I have no stats in front of me as far as who runs well at Phoenix. I'm just going based off the seat of my pants. You know what? Keep an eye on Ty. Keep an eye on Ty Gibbs. There's a chance that he can keep this momentum going. I'm not saying for sure that, hey, he's going to run great at Phoenix. He's going to have another top 10 or a top 5. But there's a chance that maybe he could, he's still motivated by all this talk about him and all this, criticism that he's gotten over this last week or so. There's a chance that he can still keep this momentum going. Hey, I had a top 5 finish here at COTA. Let's keep this going. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's keep the motivation high for this team to do well. And maybe there's a chance that he can have himself a good run at Phoenix. So that's my list of guys. There's the 5 to keep an eye on for a bunch of different reasons. First 4 are for obviously performance-wise. These guys are usually pretty good at Phoenix, but that 5th one, more of a dark horse pick for Ty Gibbs there. Probably will not run well, but there's a chance. That being said, that's going to do it for us. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up now. This is actually going to be the shortest NASCAR podcast that we've done to date. That's surprising. It is very late for me, so this is actually only going to get uploaded here in the next couple of hours. So that's how late I'm recording this. So my voice is starting to go. I'm getting tired. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm so thankful to anybody who stuck around this long and actually listened to the whole thing. You guys are awesome. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to all the regular shit that everyone asks you to do. Sub for sure. But if anybody truly enjoys this, let me know. Let me know where I can improve. Get down to the comments section and talk to me. Say something. Say anything. If I suck, I suck. Tell me I suck. If I'm not enthusiastic enough, if I'm not good enough, tell me. If you like what you're listening to, let me know about that too. Like, dislike, do something. But let me know you're out there. I want to hear you people. I want to hear your voices. I want to hear what you have to say about me. Give me your opinions on NASCAR. Give me your opinions on Ty Gibbs. Give me your opinions on Carson Hocevar. Give me your opinions on everybody and anybody. But let me know. Go listen on Spotify if you don't like listening on YouTube. There isn't much on the YouTube video itself. It's more just an avenue of getting it out there. So if you like listening on the download, you don't actually want your phone open, your computer open, go listen on Spotify. Link is in the bio of my YouTube channel. Again, I hope y'all enjoyed. See y'all next time. Same time, Tuesday, 6 a.m. is when these things go up. I'll see y'all later. Take it easy.